Hello and welcome to my new video. In this video, I am going to talk about a very thorny issue of conflict of interest. I am Atikur Rahman. You might have heard in different on different news channels about uh, politicians and other government servants of having conflict of interest in different businesses. So it is very important to know what are conflict of interest and how they are pursued. The summary of my today's video is uh, first I would like to define what is conflict of interest. Then I would elaborate the two terms, difference between two terms, conflicting interest and conflict of interest. Then I would give different types of conflicts of interest. Uh, Different types are first one are gift, bribes, and kickbacks. The second one are interest in other companies. The third one are insider information. And in the end, I would like to discuss the moral status of conflict of interest. So first of all, let's discuss the conflict of interest. What is meaning actually the meaning of conflict of interest? Professional conflicts of interest are situations where professionals have an interest that, if they pursue that interest, might keep them from meeting their obligation to their employees or clients. As those interests which can keep an employer or a client away from its obligation to the company or organization in which he or she is working are known as professional conflict of interest. What may be the reasons of this conflict of interest? One of the reason is that a person is serving in some professional role in an other company, say working as a consultant for some competitors companies at the same time. Another reason could be due to personal interest, such as making substantial private interest investment in competitors' companies. Um, might have heard in different countries of people serving in government and making heavy investment in private sector enterprises or even stock exchange. Those are basically when you have uh, uh, basically money beyond means, it can create uh, and you invest it in some other sector, and this may give rise to conflict of interest. Uh, People often confuse conflict of interest with conflicting interest. They are not synonyms, and conflicting interest means a person has two or more desires that cannot all be satisfied in given circumstances. Suppose a student is interested uh, in taking 4 or 5 subjects in a single semester, but due to different reasons, he cannot study them properly, but he has interest in them, so he skips one or two of them. This is due to the conflicting interest. It doesn't show any wrongdoing by the student. However, if professional conflicts are other situations. In professional conflicts of interest, it is often physically or economically possible to pursue all of the conflicting interests. By doing so, would be morally problematic, right? uh, Conflict of interest, you can take conflicting interest, uh, but doing so might have physically or economically have benefits for that person. Next, what are the types of conflict of interest? There are great many ways of having conflict of interest, but some of the more renowned ways are First one are gifts, bribes, and kickbacks. Second one are interest in other companies. Third one is insider information. Uh, I would like to discuss them one by one. Let's first discuss bribe. First, we need to know what is bribe. A bribe is substantial amount of money or goods offered beyond a stated business contract with the aim of winning an advantage in gaining or keeping the contract, and where the advantage is illegal or otherwise unethical. There is a typing mistake, sorry for that. So bribes are those amounts which are offered to win a contract from some other companies, which is considered unethical, right? Uh, you just Google the bribe cases in the world, and many companies give bribes to government officials and other companies, or in other ways to get the contracts. One famous case is of Siemens. Siemens paid a lot of money to Germany and different countries to get the contract. Uh, People in third world country like Pakistan bribe the government officials to take contracts like of making roads and other. Uh, bribe is a very common example of conflict of interest. You take a bribe from somebody, and you give the contract to that person uh, due to that bribe. Next are the gifts. Uh, Gifts are not considered bribes as long as they are small gratitudes offered in normal code of business. At times, you have a good lunch from somebody, or they give you gift. But if the gifts are very uh, uh, very of high quality, and they have high monetary value, this means that they might have some conflict of interest. Uh, Often, medical reps in Pakistan uh, give a lot of gifts to medical practitioners to prescribe their medicine. Uh, this is a sort of, you can say, comes under bribe. Uh, so, uh, in, while considering gift as a bribe or not a bribe, the rule of thumb that can be used is, if the offer or acceptance of a particular gift could have embarrassing consequences for your company if made public, then do not accept the gift. This could be serve as a rule of thumb while accepting gift. Next are the kickbacks. What are kickbacks? Kickbacks are pre-arranged payments made by contractors to companies or their representatives in exchange for contracts actually granted. Um, Many large companies have give kickbacks on contracts. There was a famous case of Augusta submarine purchased by Pakistan from France, uh, and uh, and it, and basically the French Prime Minister at that time was convicted for this case, uh, and many other companies receive kickbacks while giving contract to international companies or even national companies. So kickbacks is internationally a very famous form of conflict of interest. Second, Second type of conflict of interest is interest in other companies. Some conflict of interest consist in having an interest in competitors or subcontractor business. For example, working for the competitor or subcontractor as employee or consultant. This would be uh, thought as a conflict of interest. Partial ownership or substantial stock holdings in the competitor's business. This would also be considered as a a conflict of interest. Holding a few shares of stock in company one has occasional dealing. This should not be considered as a conflict of interest. However, if uh, the number of shares are large, then this could be considered as the conflict of interest. If one spouse works or is subcontractor to one's company, this should not be considered as conflict of interest. But however, in a situation where uh, conflict of interest arises if one's job involves granting the contract to the subcontractor. This may be a problematic situation and could come under conflict of interest. Uh, a famous term used for interest in other company is known as uh, moonlighting. Moonlighting is basically doing job or something like that in one spare time for another company. A lot of software engineers and many other uh, employers work as moonlighters. So moonlighting is basically working for some other company or some competitor company in your extra time or spare time. Moonlighting usually creates conflicts of interest only in special circumstances such as working for competitors, suppliers, or customers. If somebody in his or her spare time works for the competitor companies, the supplier to your company, or the customer of your company, then basically it's a conflict of interest. Uh, if the moonlighting leaves somebody exhausted, uh, he is lethargic. He becomes lethargic. He has health problems. Then basically it leads to a conflict of interest because he is not giving the proper time to the his main company or the major company where he or she is working. Next is insider information. Insider information occurs when that information to gain an advantage or set up a business opportunity for one's family or one's friend. The information might concern one's own company or another company with which one does business. For example, engineers might tell their friends about the impending announcement of revolutionary invention which they have been perfecting or of their corporation's plan for a merger that will greatly improve the worth of another company's stock. In doing so, they give those friends an edge of an investment promising high returns. Owning stock in the company for which one works is of course not objectionable and this is often encouraged by employees, but that ownership should be based on the same information available to general public. Suppose if you know that the price of a particular commodity is going up or going down, so you purchase it in bulk and you basically sell it when the prices go up, and uh, you can do it vice versa. Similarly, when there is a new contract, new road is being built, or a new there is a new occurrence of a mega project is being built, so people disclose this information before time, and their friends and their relatives take the benefit of this information to their own interests, and this is a um, a very harmful or side effect of conflict of interest. Next, I would like to give moral status of conflict of interest. By definition, we all know that conflict of interest should be avoided because they threaten to prevent one from fully meeting those obligations. One thing to ponder upon is Is every conflict of interest giving harm and should always be condemned? At times, conflict of interest is unavoidable, uh, so it is, and it is not always unethical. Uh, in practice, some conflicts are thought to be unavoidable or even acceptable. Uh, for example, in America, the government allows employees of aircraft manufacturers such as Boeing or McDonnell Douglas to serve as government inspector for the Federal Aviation Agency. This is allowed by the Boeing company to work in the Federal Aviation Agency. So, uh, as the company is allowing, this should not be considered as a conflict of interest. There are a lot of other cases in which the people want their employees to learn the skill from other companies, so they allow or enhance the skill of their own employees or clients. So they basically allow them to do jobs privately in some other companies. But this is not always true, right? And when such situation happen, what what one should do, even when conflict of interest are unavoidable, like the cases um, that have unavoidable circumstances in terms of conflict of interest, employees are still obligated to inform their employees and obtain approval. This is the most important point. If you want to do moonlighting, if you want to use insider information, or there is any case of bribes, kickbacks, or gifts, you should inform your employer about it and take its approval first, and then you should go for that. This should be the right way of dealing with conflict of interest. So, in summary, I would say that conflict of interest are often harmful, but not always harmful, especially in situations where one's skills are improved and for the benefit of the organization or your employer. Then that conflict of interest is, uh, and it is by the consent of your employer, then it is not unethical. All other means of giving bribes, kickbacks, insider information, or interest in other companies should be considered as bribes. Should be considered, sorry, as conflict of interest. I hope you understood this, this uh, topic of conflict of interest. I would come back with a new topic soon. Thank you very much.